Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's live discussion of House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 9, The Green Council. I'm here, of course, to very hurriedly rush my son into being the king because goddamn everything else. Goddamn, we start a war. Anyway, joining me, as always, Alyssa from Alyssa Jean Reviews. Alyssa, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. Always enjoy being here.
Cool. And special guest once joining us once again, Mr. Don Willi from A Dawn of Ice and Fire himself. Thank you so much.
Oh, wait, that's me, right? Yeah. Hey, glad to be back here with the both of you and talking House of the Dragon. Oh, interesting episode. This was.
I'm still kind of undecided on this episode. So, my initial reaction was it's good, but maybe not great. Like, I wouldn't necessarily, I think my expectations were really, really high. And I was expecting this to be the best episode of the season. After I first watched it, I didn't think it was because I thought that there was a subplot that I felt was kind of unnecessary, like on the verge, just maybe itsy bit filler, just a little bit. But and it seemed, I think it's looking back on it, I think it's a different pacing than most episodes. I believe most episodes moved more swiftly through time, where this one just halted and like hyper focused on a singular day or days or whatever it was. But when I went back and watched this again, I thought about it more. I'm like, oh no, actually this works. No, actually I'm loving it. Once I shedded my expectations, so I'm still not sure if I'd call this the best episode of the season or not, but I think it's definitely up there for sure. As I said, I'm somewhat still undecided, but I love the musical cues, and I think getting into the character bits actually was a real, and I think it actually, even though it was a bit jarring that they slowed the pace down, I think it was necessary for the story overall once I reviewed and thought about it. Special guest John, we'll get your thoughts in this episode first.
While I think I agree with the statement that it is not the best episode of the season, still an amazing episode of television. You know, this is, it still moved the story forward because, I mean, if you think about it, right, we still have to deal with the fact that we lost Viserys, who this was the time where he thought that he finally was able to pull his family together, right? And in the midst of his dying fever dream, thinking that he's talking to his daughter, it all goes whoosh. It's all gone. Um, and so seeing the aftermath behind this and the different players and how all the different pieces have been moving behind the scenes, and now they're just like, okay, we've been waiting for this to happen, and now action. You know, so this was just interesting because it's almost like an epilogue to everything that's happened before, but it's also a prologue. This is a weird kind of middle episode where it's like it has to bring you down from the climax of what happened at the end of last episode and then vault you in to a brand new climax for something bigger to come. So yeah, this was great on so many levels, but it still somehow is not the best episode of the season, and that's to me is quite startling actually, because episode nines are usually the ones that, like, everyone is always talking about uh, as being like, oh, this is the biggest episode of the season. So, I, you know, man, I love the episode, but last episode was probably just that much better.
So Alyssa, I'm assuming that you loved the episode, but maybe I'm wrong. What were
Why
your
do you make
thoughts
that
on it?
assumption?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe am I totally wrong about that?
I'm actually kind of where you're at, whereas I
Hmm.
really had to sit with this episode. Like I had to really kind of let it sit and marinate to really kind of think about where I come out on this. Um, so I saw the episode titles many weeks ago. I saw episode 9 was the Green Council. Having read the book, I know what the Green Council is. I was looking forward to this episode. Sometimes we can be victims of our own expectations. It ended up being that what the show did was so much different than what I expected. So I kind of had to like kind of sit with it and was it different better or different not as good? And I had to kind of sit with it. And I think I come out mixed, but more on the positive side. I think there's definitely more positives that I take out of it than negative. Um, so, so a couple the character changes we'll get into in more detail. And I talked about this last week too, how they really have changed Alicent from the way I read her in the book as straight up evil, and they're making her more nuanced, and I like that. And Rain is she had nothing to do with this in the book. She was off in Driftmark. She's nowhere near any of this. And to me, she's the MVP of this episode, and not just because of the dragon scene. In fact, the dragon scene is probably the least of the reasons why I love Rhaenys. In this episode, I love the confrontation between her and Alicent. We'll get into more of that later, but I think she was the superstar of this episode, and that was a change from the book, which I really, really love. So there's a lot to love about this episode. I think where I still find myself feeling a little disappointed is the Green Council was so tense, so full of tension, and so intense in the book. And I don't know, in the after show, Ryan Condal was like, "Oh, we're going for this Hitchcockian thriller thing," and I was like, I don't know, not as much as the book though. I don't know. The music was really good. Like this is probably the best music of the season. I loved the music. It was definitely feeding into that Hitchcockian feel. I don't know though. In the book, they wait 10 days before they tell anybody, and Viserys's body doesn't even get moved out of his room. And finally, the smell gets so bad, so they have to move it out. And they don't tell a soul, and they're trying to figure because they don't want Rhaenyra to find out, and they're also trying to plot and plan and figure out how they're going to do this. So and in the preview for this week's episode in the trailer, we saw the scene of Otto saying, "Nobody leaves this room until we're done here." I wanted that to be the episode. Like I wanted them to be in that room for most of the episode. That's kind of where my expectation was. And instead, they do the Star Trek 3, The Search for Aegon, as I call it. I think Mark has a different name that he calls it. And there are good things that come out of this. I think we get some good character development, not only for Aegon, but Aemond. I'm really interested in Aemond. I'm already in love with this actor who's playing Aemond, even though this is only his second episode. It feels like he's been there for the whole season. Really liking what he's doing, and we get a little character development of him. We get Mysaria coming back, and we get a little bit into the underbelly. We get a little bit of perspective from the commoners, which Game of Thrones doesn't do a whole lot. I like that. And of course, I love the Eric and Arik being put in the forefront. So good things certainly came out of this whole search for Aegon thing. But I don't know. I maybe I'll watch it again and I'll get over it. But I still feel a little bit disappointed that it didn't have that intensity that I felt from reading the book. But it's still overall, I still come out more positive than negative. I would easily put episode 7 and 8 both above this. So this is not close to. This is probably third, honestly, but this is not. I wouldn't even consider it as the best episode of the season. But it's still pretty good. And there's still a lot of things that I really loved about it that we'll talk about as we get into it.
Sure. And I'm not sure if I'm remembering your predictions correctly, but didn't you predict that episode 9 would just like focus on King's Landing and Alicent and then not have Rhaenyra at all?
Yes, but I wasn't going to mention it because my full prediction was no Rhaenyra in episode 9, no Alicent in episode 10. So I'm still only halfway there. At this point.
Okay.
So they need to not have Alicent. But I made that prediction because that's the way I thought it should be done. That's the way I would do it if I were the writer on the show. I actually didn't think I would get this correct. I was actually surprised that they did that because I think you need to focus in on one side at a time leading up to the big Dance of the Dragons conflict. I think you needed to focus in on the Green Council and Alicent and Aegon and all the drama there. I don't see what a throwaway scene with Rhaenyra and Daemon would have done to contribute to this episode. So I was actually very pleased that my prediction came true. I wasn't expecting it to come true, or at least half true, because we'll see what they do next week. I didn't see Alicent in the trailer, so I could definitely get that one correct. Yeah, so I am very pleased that they did do it that way.
I was actually, to be honest, I was actually disappointed. I wanted to see Rhaenyra find out what was going on, but I guess that's fine. We'll just wait till next week's episode. As I said, looking back on it, I actually think it works that they hyper-focused on this one storyline, and then we'll get back to her perspective next week.
Well, as I said in the book, like she doesn't find out for a very long time. So they don't tell anyone for 10 days. So I think it's a couple weeks before she ever finds out. So that's kind of the expectation I had coming into this, so we just need to focus on this and then Rhaenyra finds out later.
Indeed. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into the episode. Let's start with the Green Council itself. I mean, it kind of begins with, Alicent going to her father and saying that we talked about this whole thing bullshit last week about her thinking that Viserys told her to that she wanted her son to be king. And I think, like, we talked about that last week, how, and it was just her wishful thinking. Like, that's what she wanted to hear, even though he just said a bunch of nonsense about a prophecy and the Song of Ice and Fire. It has nothing to do with it, but because she heard Aegon's name, that's what she wanted to hear, so that's what she heard, and so that's what she's going with forward. And I believe from this scene with her father that she 100% believes this, that she is, that self-delusional, and so that's how they're operating, and so they meet with the small council, which in the books was referred to as the Green Council, which this whole episode was about, and then we find out that it's all well and good that according to Alicent anyway, that Viserys wants Aegon to be king, but he was already planning, like him and the group of people are already planning to install Aegon as king as soon as Viserys died. And it was interesting getting Alicent's perspective, and to touch on what Alyssa mentioned earlier, Alicent is very kind of different than the book. She was more like she's upset over the fact that they were already planning this, and she seems more sincere of like following her husband's dying wish or whatever, her king's dying wish, which has just wishful thinking on her part, but we're hearing what she wanted to hear. But she and in this, it will come up as a conflict throughout the episode that she actually doesn't want Rhaenyra killed like her father does. But then, yes, as we see, and this is true to the books, there's Beesbury, who is not on board with this and outraged about it. Now, I wondered how the show would play it, because the book has different accounts from different people, and so some people said that Beesbury was thrown in the cell where he died. One said that Cole slit his throat, and I kind of expecting the throat slitting thing, but I think this kind of works for the show better, where Cole doesn't necessarily intend to kill him, but is like really pissed off and slams him down on the table and kills him. And and then things get intense from there. You have the other Westerling, the Lord Commander of the King's Guard, like threatening Cole, and I love how that Lannister guy just like, let me just move over here for a second. They're like about to have this big sword fight. Um, the maester's like, hey, how about we just get rid of this dead body? But Hightower's like, no, we need to talk about this now, and we need to get and make all their plans. So I thought this was a really powerful scene. I absolutely loved it. I thought it met my expectations. I kind of echo what Alyssa said, that I agree that I wish this would have went on for longer, but I still really liked it. Don, let's start with you for this one. What was your thoughts on the Green Council?
Well, first off, my apologies. Lucky's been sick last week, and so I guess he's feeling a little better now and wants to get hugs. Anyway, so this was, a very interesting scene because, you had Harold Westerling deciding to give up his cloak, and obviously he'll be back later on. Rest in peace to Lord Beesbury in the name of the Seven. He deserved much better than he got. I think that's probably the reason why, later on in Game of Thrones, we don't see those little balls on the table. They heard about what happened to Lord Beesbury, and they're like, yeah, in case someone's head does get slammed on the table, we want him to maybe get a concussion and not die from, marble ball to the head. So that was a pretty interesting choice because honestly speaking, I thought they were gonna have Kristen Cole throw him out the window like in the book. Um, yeah, so the fact that they went with the head smash instead, I've heard a lot of complaints about that one. I've heard a lot of complaints because they're like, "Oh, come on, he smashed his head one time and he's just dead." I'm like, did you not see the big, like golf ball size marble sitting there that probably I'm gonna say has absolutely no give against the human skull? Um, so yeah, that's plausible. And plus, he was an old man. He's an old man versus a young knight clad in armor. I'm pretty sure the armor is going to add some strength and some weight behind him, pushing him down to the table like that. Um, Otto Hightower, Otto Hightower, just a man of absolute ambition and greed, right? At Lucky, damn you, boy. Yeah, ambition and greed, nothing but that. I mean, the fact that they were working in the background to do this regardless of okay, I'm sorry, to be able to them working in the background to do this regardless of whatever Allison would have told them. It was like, yeah, Aegon's gonna be king regardless because that's what we want. We want him to be king. There's a bunch of other people who are supporting who want him to be king. We're making him king. And Allison is sitting there like, wait, I'm sorry, you guys already were planning this? It's like, I've been telling you for the past 20 years, Aegon, king, talk to your husband, make Aegon king. Have you not been listening to me? Make Aegon king. I understand you're not that much older than him, maybe 15, 16 years, but still, make Aegon king. So, yeah, it was one of those things where Allison shouldn't have been surprised. She shouldn't have been so upset about it because, after all, with the way that her dad has been treating this whole situation, why would you not expect this? I mean, he got kicked out of his job for doing the thing that he's about to do right now. So, I mean, like, this should not come as a shock to Allison whatsoever. That was my only kind of issue with this scene because, like, he's literally been telling you since the day Aegon was born, oh, hey, good, talk to Viserys and make him the king. So, I mean, like, that was the only thing that kind of got me. Kristen Cole being a douchebag, no, that's to be expected. Harold Westerling is actually dead in the books, So that was a little different. And which Lannister? That's not Jason. Jason is the actual Lord. Tylan. Yeah, I mean, listen, uh, Tylan is a smart douchebag. Okay, I mean, listen, he is his twin's twin, but at least he had the good sense to be like, you know what? I don't know anything about fighting, so I'm gonna let the two armor clad guys do this, and I'm gonna step out of the way so I don't end up like the man right over there on the table. Have at thee, boys. And yeah, so my thoughts on the Green Council. Oh yeah, and they're wrong. They're so wrong.
Yeah, I have to admit I did not have death by table ball on my bingo card of Beesbury deaths. Yeah, it's kind of like Chekhov's table ball. Like everybody at the beginning of the season was like, why do they have those balls there? It was all just a setup for Beesbury to get murdered with. That's the whole reason that they are there. And I think Don was right that that's just why we don't see them in Game of Thrones. Like some king somewhere along the lines said, yeah, we're going to get rid of those. We're not going to have the murder balls on the table anymore. Um, Yeah, I don't know. As Don said, Westerling has long since been dead in the book. So since that was the case, and we saw in the trailer, we saw kind of him drawing his sword on Kristen Cole. I thought Kristen Cole was also going to kill Westerling. Um, I was kind of surprised that it didn't happen that way, especially since he's been dead for a very long time in the book at this point. I don't know. Yeah, it was good. I still was I just was still expecting more, but I'm probably need to just get over that because it was good. I think what really drew me in most to this scene is Alicent and her different approach. Because if I remember correctly, I think she was leading this conspiracy. Like, not only was she not surprised by it, but I think she might have been the head honcho behind it, if I remember correctly, or she was very much involved in the planning for this. But they've clearly changed her in the book or in the show, and I really like that they're making her a little more nuanced because I do think she could have come across as sort of mustache twirly, if not like basically her father. And I do think that this does, for me, it adds a little more credence to why they needed the whole comic misunderstanding thing, which I never had a huge problem with. I heard a couple other really, really strong opinions against that, like hating that, and it ruined the whole episode and all of these sorts of things. But I kind of see why they did it that way, because it gives Alicent a reason to support Aegon as king. Because prior to that, I don't know that she would have. Like, I don't know that she would have willingly gone along with any of this. But because she so firmly believes that Viserys told her that that's what he wanted. And I do also agree what we talked about last week, that she believes what she wanted to believe. Like, she wanted an excuse for her son to be the king, and she has it. But I don't think without that excuse, she would have been so willing to go along with this. And I think she is pretty naive. To Don's point about, well, how could she not know this? I think because she's too naive. Like, wouldn't think that people would be doing that. I think that she's being tragically naive, thinking that she acts like that they're gonna extend an olive branch to Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra is gonna bend the knee, and they're all gonna be best friends again, and it's gonna be like they were when they were kids, and it's all gonna be rainbows and unicorns. And I'm sorry, but at this point, when you've gone this far already, Otto is right. If you got to kill Rhaenyra immediately before she knows what's happening. Not that I would be rooting for that, but from their perspective, that's the move. Like, you kill her immediately, and Alicent is being tragically naive here. But I really like this flavor that they've added to her character, where she really seems to want to do the right thing, whereas she's much more portrayed as more power hungry, like her father. in the book, and I like this portrayal of her a lot better. I find it a lot more interesting. So that's kind of what I was sort of latched on to in this scene. Besides, Beesbury getting murdered with a ball, the table ball, whatever that thing was called. But yeah.
There was one other part of the scene I really liked that I wanted to mention was that one dude. I can't remember his name. I think it was like Sir Weil or something like that, who was like when they were talking about the plot, the idea to kill Rhaenyra, and he kept like, well, but and Allison sort of shoots him like, one more word out of you and you're going to the wall. Like I thought I liked that part because that's like showed how feared that she can be and how fearsome that she can be and she was kind of sick of these petty lords trying to tell her what to do, even though, like as Alyssa said, from their perspectives, probably the right thing to do or the smart thing to do anyway. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, dude.
Yeah, so I mean, listen. we are here at the table of the lords of the douchebaggery. Okay. And look, ever since he got installed on the small council, because obviously he wasn't there from before Otto came back. Yeah, ever since he got installed on the small council was one of those things where it's just like, oh, well, blah 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 blah, and yeah, come on, we know what you're trying to get at, and I'm like, listen, you know what, Mr. Peanut Gallery, we don't need you with your echoing there, okay? You with your little smarmy remarks and halfway instigating. No, 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 no. Sit your ass down and what your master of laws. Okay, fine. Make some new laws or something. We don't really need to hear from you. Just quill ink parchment. Quill ink parchment. No words.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so if no one had any last thoughts on the Green Council, we can move on to different subject. Okay, so let's talk about the section that I named "Where in King's Landing is Aegon San Diego?" Anyway, or see, I almost like put my screen name as Waldo, but that would have been a deep cut. Like, where's Waldo? Where's Aegon? But anyway, so when I at the start of this video referred to a storyline I thought was a wee bit filler, it was this one. It does give us a lot of important information about the specifics of King's Landing, like uh, the 10-year-old fight club and stuff like which we don't talk about first two rules, but and the and character development between Eric and Auric. God, names are so sad. Anyway, and character development with Aemon, as Alyssa mentioned, and we learned a bit more about Aegon. So I see it as a device to do those things, and to bring the White Worm into it as well. It was kind of a device to do all those things. So yeah, I want to talk about this one step at a time. So let's start with the Sir Eric and Auric, and them being sort of recruited by Hightower to. Actually, no, sorry. Let me scratch that. Put a pin on Eric and Auric. Actually, first thing I want to talk about is Otto Hightower and Allison Hightower racing to find Aegon. Who's going to find him first? Because this I thought was kind of a false dilemma. Because at first I was like, what does it matter? Both of them want to make him king. So what's the difference? But then it was like revealed later on that the difference is and that maybe, most people got this. I was dense and didn't get this, but it's because, they want to influence him, where Otto wanted to influence him to kill Rhaenyra, and Allison wanted to influence him to not kill Rhaenyra. And I honestly think Aegon's going to do what he's going to do. So I kind of thought that's part of the reason why I thought this, who's going to get to him first, was kind of like fake stakes, and how this storyline kind of didn't really need to exist. I mean, we got all this character development that we needed, but I don't know. Alyssa, we'll start with you for this one.
No, I absolutely agree with you. This was my least favorite part of the episode. And as I said at the top, there are some positive things that come out of this. But I would have rather spent more time in the Grand Council, have more intensity, more tension, more like of the Hitchcockian thriller that they claimed that they were going for. Whereas I absolutely agree that it felt like fake stakes to me. I think Aegon is going to do what he's going to do. I half expected him at the end before Rhaenys comes in, which was a total surprise because it's not in the books at all. So I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting him to be like, I order Rhaenyra's execution, which was kind of similar to what Joffrey did. Joffrey was like, yes, my mother is weak. She's a weak woman. Kill Edward Stark now. So I actually kind of expected something similar to that. Aegon is going to do what he's going to do. And we may still get that if we don't see him next episode, the beginning of season 2, he's going to want to kill Rhaenyra despite what his mom thinks. So what was the point of that? What was the point of that race to get Aegon? I think this is where I kind of the episode lost me a little bit because I wanted more Green Council. Instead, we get this, which is like, what's the point? Like, I don't know. I'm in agreement with you. This is my. Although we do ultimately with the whole thing, we do get positive things out of it. I still was like, I don't know.
All right, so Don, your thoughts specifically on Otto versus Allison. Who's going to find Aegon first?
So that was actually pretty interesting because, Allison, for whatever reason, has had blinders on to who her father is for a very long time, right? And even after his display in the small council chambers and her finally realizing like, oh wait, oh, my dad really is, you know he is about the shit that he was talking about. She's still kind of like, well, maybe he isn't that bad. And then you get this scene and she kind of had to exert her own authority over her father, because if not, she's looking at it like things are going to get really bad really quickly if I don't at least try to put my foot down against him. And so the battle to get Aegon now comes out of this because, yeah, that Rhaenyra was her friend. That was her husband's daughter. They grew up together, and whether or not they had their back and forth, she at the end of the day is realizing, hey, this is not someone who is malicious and was out here trying to target me and do a bunch of monstrous things to me. Like, you put that in my head. You put it in my head that if she becomes queen, she's killing everybody who's named Hightower or related to a Hightower. So yeah, no, I'm good. And he's like, look, I don't care what you have to say on the matter. Okay, you're the queen, fine, but we need Aegon to be on the throne, and we need to take out Rhaenyra, Daemon, anybody who just will not bend the knee, because this is what I want. Like, I don't need to justify anything else to you. This is what I want. Okay, I can't be the king. This is the closest thing I'm ever going to get to be king. This is what I want. I want it. You're my daughter. You should want it too. The fact that you don't want it is the problem. You're the problem, not me. So yeah, just to see their kind of different points of view on this is interesting, and even the people that they send is kind of interesting, because at the end of the day, Alicent knows that she's pretty much the only person in this entire group that does not hate Rhaenyra right now. Everyone else is kind of like, all right, well, I'll kill her. It's fine, I'll kill her, but she knows that Kristen Cole, even though he hates Rhaenyra, won't kill her unless she says so. And Aemon, I don't think she fully realizes who Aemond is. I think she's been so focused on trying to placate her father, trying to placate Viserys, trying to possibly rebuild bridges, and and holding on to her hatred for so very long that she's kind of ignored who Aemond is. So her allowing him to go with Kristen Cole to go get Aegon because she knows, like, hey, Aegon is a wild boy. He's out here having all sorts of dalliances that he shouldn't be having. That if people found this out, they're like, nah, we're good on your son being king. I know most of us don't like the whole idea of a queen, but not him, just not that guy right there. Um, and not realizing that Eamon is probably worse because he actually wants the job and would be very ruthlessly efficient at all of the things that Otto Hightower would probably want to do. Um, and Otto Hightower sends two members of the Kingsguard who, for the most part, for anyone outside of the Red Keep, they're going to be pretty inconspicuous. And with one of them being Aegon's sworn shield, he's like, okay, well, yeah, I know how depraved the guy who I'm going to look for is. I know I'm not going to go look for him in the regular parts of Flea Bottom where just about anybody could walk, probably shouldn't. No, I'm going to places where nobody really should be going to look for the prince who is now going to become king. And the fact that Otto Hightower knows this about these guys and knows this about his grandson, that I think sheds a big light on the two strategies of how they decided to even go about uh, finding him in the first place. Because remember, Eric and Arik already knew where to go, whereas it was kind of by chance that Kristen Cole and Eamon found him. That wasn't, it wasn't the thing of, oh yeah, we know exactly where to look. It was oh well, I thought I knew where to look, and now I shoot, this is even worse than I thought. I mean, this is Eamon that 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 doesn't know now.
All right. So yeah, no, I wanna focus more on these specific aspects, starting with the whole Eric and Arik thing because this was interesting because as I mentioned last week, they were introduced in the Blink If You Miss It scene, or one of them was. It was who's Aegon's protector? Is it Eric or Arik? It
I
was
believe I
Eric.
believe it's Eric.
Eric. Okay, so he was shown, and then they were mentioned. Oh, I can't tell you apart, and they called him Ark or whatever. Uh, and I only recognized it because I was like, "Oh, I know these characters from the books." Interesting to see, because I was wondering whether or not they would include them. I'm actually glad they did, and this episode gets more into them and how Eric is really like having to see the kind of despicable person that Aegon is, and saying that very clearly he should not be king, and having to deal. It's like having to deal with all his bullshit. It's almost similar to Cole, how Cole sort of being with Rhaenyra and saying how she was flaunting and having sex with whoever it wanted and rejected her, that he kind of like resented her for seeing what she was doing, where Eric kind of does the same thing with Aegon, seeing all the despicable things he is and all how he treats his family, his wife, seeing like being completely like resenting him. But his brother, twin brother, on the other hand, hadn't had that experience. So he's still like, well, this is duty. This is our duty. We're going to follow the king. Why you think your duty? And I think it was interesting getting the nuances conversations between the two brothers, and and then they follow them, and of course, yeah, as Don mentioned, Eric knew more of where to look for Aegon because he had to protect him and follow him around, and he knows this despicable places they like to come, like the introduction of the 10-year-old Fight Club, which we'll get more into later. And then it ended with Eric just abandoning Arik and not even helping fight Cold and be like, well, fuck this shit, I'm out of here. And I thought that brought an interesting dynamic to the storyline, which, as I said, was kind of unnecessary, but that was an interesting aspect of it. Alyssa, we'll start with you on the twins.
Yeah, I'm very happy that they brought the twins forward to the limelight this episode. I mean, again, it's based off of what I know from the book, so I won't get into spoilers, but I'm glad that it was so good to see that. And I found it really interesting. And by the way, like the way I remember which is which, Arik with an A, he is now on Team Aegon, Team which also starts with an A, Team Alyssa starts with an A. David is on that team, and they are all a-holes. And so Arik with an A is on Team A-hole, whereas Eric with an E, he helps Rhaenys escape. And also he's, the reason why he, with mild spoiler for the trailer next week, we see him, appraising Rhaenyra and calling her the queen, is because he was, exposed to Aegon just being a terrible, terrible person and could not possibly be, he saw firsthand and he can't possibly be fit to be king. And that's why he makes the choice that he does. And I think Game of Thrones in general has always been good at this, but House of Dragons does a pretty good job too of taking these like minor characters out of nowhere and like making a compelling story about them. And I was really into it, not just because I am familiar with these characters in the book. I just think that it was a really interesting story to see these twin brothers kind of taking opposite sides. And I liked how Eric was just like, no, fuck this. I'm not helping you fight Kristen Cole. You're on your own. I think he knew Cole wouldn't actually kill another member of the Kingsguard. So he was like, yeah, you'll be fine. I'm getting out of here.
Eric and Arik, left and right. Brothers to the end. And also Kingsguard brothers to the end. Wow, interesting. Listen, it was interesting to kind of see the divergence in their perspectives. And it's funny because it almost reminded me of Captain America Civil War a bit, because here you have two sides of the same coin where they're both think that they're doing the right thing for a larger purpose, and you can see both sides of it, even if you don't necessarily agree with both sides of it. One is like, hey, look, this is the vow we took. We don't get to pick who the king is. We just have to do our job and protect him from the outside world, from harm. And the other one is like, yeah, I understand we don't get to pick who the king is, but we still also, took vows to protect the innocent. And these people are innocent, and look at what is happening, and imagine what's going to happen when this man becomes king. So, it's six in one hand, half a dozen in the other. But me personally, yeah, fuck Aegon. The dude is a huge douchebag, and like the fact that you have one of the Kingsguard saying, "Hey, look, I don't care that this was my job. Screw this guy." That should tell you something, because you don't have many instances of a member of the Kingsguard saying, "You know what? Nope, I'm done. I'm out of here. Here's my cape. Here's my sword. Here's my armor. Peace." You don't have many instances of that. So, for another member of the Kingsguard and your family member, your twin no less, for you to have such diametrically opposed views on this same human being and the institution which uh, they sit at the head of. Yeah, it's interesting to see that people who came from the same genetic pool so very closely together can have such yes such divergent views on the absolute same subject. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds. Yes, I have read the book, but it's been a long time, so I don't remember what.
Yeah. See, I bought Fire and Blood, but I haven't read it yet. I started reading it, but well, I started reading, but I know this story from, as I said, World of Ice and Fire, and that gets into less detail. So I don't know how much more detail Fire and Blood gets into, but from my perspective, it's just like, oh, these are twin brothers in the King's Garden. One supported Allison, one supported Rhaenyra, and why. And I love how the show gets into why. It gets more deeper, and I really liked how they really fleshed out, and it made it believable that they would totally have two different viewpoints on this.
Yeah, Fire and Blood doesn't go into much more detail either. The show definitely has gone into more detail than Fire and Blood did, which I like.
Yes. So, I want to get into the other sort of adventures where the other searchers for Aegon were in the King's Landing was Cole and Aemon. And I guess most of what I want to talk about is with them is the first scene where Alicent sends them out, because there's a couple of like interesting tidbits that I sort of latched onto. First of all, Helena repeats her line from last episode, "Beware of the beasts below the boards," and I've heard a lot of theories of what this could refer to. It could refer to the dragon at the end of the episode who burst out below the boards. I was taking it to refer to the white worm. What's her name?
Mysteria.
Mysteria. Yeah.
Did I say that right? I've said it right before.
I think it's Massaria.
Massaria.
Yeah. And, I keep thinking Mysterio, and it's messing me up. I'm thinking, dude, with like a fishbowl head. Yeah.
And how that could tie into a spoiler that I won't get into. And maybe that's what the Beast of the Boards. But it was interesting. I still not sure what that refers to. And the other thing I found interesting about the scene was when God, I can't remember I should have wrote it down, the exact quote that Alicent says to Cole, something like, "If you love me as your queen," or something. Gets right up to him and say that, which was kind of interesting. Is she like manipulating him, using like sensing that he's in love with her and like using that to manipulate him? That I don't know. That was interesting. But then of course when they go on their quest, we find that Aemon does not know Aegon as well as the Eric did, and so it goes to a brothel they hadn't been to in like years. and apparently he's moved on from brothels and is now into fight clubs. And how they actually didn't strike gold until they just followed freaking Massaria. Oh, God damn it. And they just followed the other Ericsons, like, oh, that's where they're going, so we'll just follow them. So it was kind of cheating. But yeah, no, but that was again, I like that interesting dynamic. Don, we'll start with you this time with the whole Cole and Aemon.
So the whole Kristen Cole and Aemon thing was interesting because here you have who I will say, for lack of I'll say for the sake of parallel, he is kind of this story's version of or a twisted version of what's my guy? Ian Glenn. Come on.
Lord Friendzone.
Yeah. And I've been.
What's his name?
We've been calling him Lord.
Jorah Mormont? Are you talking about?
Yes, Jorah Mormont.
Yes. So this is the dark, twisted version of that. This is what happens if Jorah Mormont gets spurned by Daenerys and decides that he is going to totally turn against her. That is Kristen Cole. Because here you have this guy who was sworn to Rhaenyra, he was in love with her, and now, I got spurned, and now I'm your enemy for life. So whatever your enemies want to do to bring you down, that's fine. And that's why when Aemon is kind of going on his tirade about how he's, you know, I study the histories, I study philosophy, I'm good with a sword, I got the biggest dragon. I should be, and he stopped short of saying that he should be the king instead of Aegon. And Kristen Cole's reply to that was, yeah, I know what it's like to toil away for things that are just handed to others. And that was, he's sitting there now still stewing in this hatred for Rhaenyra for, real or imagined slights from like decades ago at this point. And the fact that he's still like, okay, yeah, whatever I need to do to bring her down. I'm just like, dude, man, grow up, okay? Do yourself a favor, Mr. Kingsguard, and grow the fuck up. Because, look, you didn't get your way with Rhaenyra. Ooh, oh my God. My honor is sullied now. Oh, I can't be the historic knight that I thought I was going to be because I had sex with a woman and broke my vows. And, man, yeah, okay. And you know what? The prince, the guy who you're going to make the king, how much worse has he done? And the guy who's with you to go find this man, think about the things that he's planning on possibly doing, right? So Cole and Amon, their whole back and forth with them basically having a giant pity party for each other for all the things that they think they'll never achieve in life because I'm the second son and I'm a landed knight who became part of the king's guard and I guess burned with yeah. This just goes to show sometimes uh sometimes you can't be cloaked in your righteousness as the thing you're going to use to justify your fucked up ill actions, and sometimes you also need someone to pull you back from being able to indulge in your darker impulses, and these two gentlemen are are the prime examples of that. One person who's like, yeah, I'm righteous, I'm good, I'm a good person. Look at all of the good things that I do, and it's like, yeah, come on, man, no, look at the people you serve. You can't be all that good if these are the people that you work for, if these are the people that you've sworn your life to protect. And then the other one, hey, I'm a prince of the realm. I get to do whatever the hell I want, whenever the hell I want. Only problem is I don't get to be king because I got an older douchebag of a brother that they want to name king because he's named after the guy who all of this is kind of built after. So, you know, these two guys really needed some better mentors in life. And unfortunately, because they didn't have better mentors, this is what we got.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to circle back to a couple of things. Well, first of all, for Kristen Cole, absolutely, um, Alicent was manipulating him. That's how I read it. One of the few instances where she has power over a man. We'll get more into that with their conversation with Rhaenys later on. But I wanted to circle back around to where you started with Helena and her repeating of the Beast of the Boards. Now, I have heard from other reviews and other things that I've listened to, a lot of people just taking it as a fact, like 100% it's set in stone that the dragon coming out at the end was the beast beneath the boards. I am still convinced it is not that it's this other thing that I can't spoil because we're doing a spoiler-free discussion here that I predicted would happen at the beginning of season 2, and I still think we're on pace for that thing to happen at the beginning of season 2, and I think that makes more sense. First of all, Beast Dragon, a little too on the nose. Like, I like the other interpretation better of the other thing as calling a beast. I think. And are there boards in the dragon pit where they can't? It seems like rubble and stone and dust. I don't think those are boards. I don't like. It kind of drives me crazy that people are like, "Oh, well, those are the beast beneath boards." What boards? There's no boards there. So I don't think that that's what the prophecy was. I think the prophecy is coming at the beginning of season 2, and hopefully they'll even have Helena repeat beast beneath the boards, and we'll say, "Oh, okay, there's the real beast beneath the boards." That's what I'm hoping for, because I would hate it if it was just the dragon's the beast. Really, I don't know, but you brought that up, so I had to touch on that before we get into, Kristen and Eamon. See, as I said in the beginning, I'm kind of really interested in this actor who's playing Eamon is really, maybe because he's so similar to Damon, I guess, and I'm already attached to Damon, but I think it makes me feel like he's been there for a while, and this is only the second episode that this actor has played Eamon, and I also kind of know, where the character's going, but even without knowing that, I feel like I would be really interested in this character because he, clearly thinks that he deserves to be king. And I think there was even a line at one point where Aegon said something like, "I'm not worthy to be king." And he's like, "Yeah, I agree." And I don't know if you, Mark, if you were still going to do a separate section where we talk about kind of the end where they get Aegon.
Yeah, I was planning on it. Yeah.
Okay, because I do have something there was something that caught my eye. My eye on that, but I'll wait till we get there. But yeah, I that was kind of the more interesting part of this whole thing for me was getting a little more insight into Aemond, and also like he has no idea. As you said, he has no idea what his brother is like now or what his brother does now. He's out of touch, and I also agree that Alicent is out of touch, not only with Aemon but with the Aegon as well. Like they just don't. His family does not know each other at all. Yeah, I'm really. I got my eye on Aemon moving forward.
But I think the phrase that sums up Alicent is that she sees what she wants to see. She wants her sons to be these noble lads, and that's what she sees. Yeah. But and just like she hears what she wants to hear. But anyway, before we get to that final conversation, I just wanted to actually real quick tackle the meeting between the White Worm and Otto Hightower, which I thought was very interesting. I think they do, and this is sort of explained later, the White Worm, how she has this whole spy network. She was kind of I called Larys the precursor to the Varys, but really I think it's her in having like what they call it, the little, what was that term Varys used to use?
Spiders.
Spiders.
There were spiders for Varys.
Wait, no, I thought they were his little birds.
And the little birds. No, Varys was the spider.
Yeah,
Varys were the little birds. Varys was the spider. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like it's very similar where she has the little birds, and it's interesting. And I didn't notice this until watching an after show or other videos that the handmaiden that was for Alicent signaled to Massaria, that's her name, signaled to her that Viserys was dead by lighting the candles. So even though they locked her up and locked up all the servants so that no one would know Viserys was dead, but they still were she was still able to figure it out. And I like how when she met with Otto Hightower, that was the first thing. She's like, "Oh, my condolences on the loss of your king," which is just the way I know that. And what else do you think I know? And how she's like, apparently purposely hid away Aegon as soon as this happened because she knew he would be this chess piece. And it's like, you gotta pay me, and more than just money, you gotta get rid of these fucking Fight Club things. It's disgusting. It's despicable. The City Watch are paid to look the other way, and the Crown doesn't care, so this needs to go. And Otto Hightower promises, yeah, sure, absolutely, we'll do that. Now, here's what I'm thinking. Not trying to not get into spoilers here, but this is, this conversation's outside the books. But I'm kind of thinking that because Alicent was the one who ultimately got Aegon, I feel like Otto Hightower is not going to keep his word, and this may spur the anger of the White One. That's my thoughts on that. Alyssa.
He was never going to keep his word. He didn't say absolutely. He said, "I'll look into it." I was shocked that she went with that. I'll look into it.
I think his exact words were, "I will remember."
Yeah, well, no, she said remember, because she prompted him to say that. She was like, said something like, "Remember, blah blah blah," and then he said, "I will remember." But when she told him about the fighting pits, he said, "I'll look into it."
Oh yeah,
those were his exact words. Yeah. And I was like, she believes that? She's going along with that? Otto Hightower was never ever gonna look into it. He was like, sure, whatever you say. But also, I think she's going to turn against them because Larys is going to try to murder her. And so I think that's why she's going to turn against them, not because of anything Otto Hightower does or says or doesn't do. I think, that's where, as soon as we'll get to it later, the scene with Larys, I think that I was like, oh, that's Masera is going to end up on Team Rhaenyra because of this, because he's going to try to have her murdered.
Well, I think the banishing of the 10-year-old fight clubs is not going to be insignificant. I think that's also going to play it. That's saying something that's very important to her.
Yeah, well, maybe she'll try to approach Rhaenyra with that. No, if you banish the 10-year-old, but I need a signature. Not I'll look into it. I need it writing with blood, your blood. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, it seems like that wouldn't just be something they would mention randomly or that we would see randomly. So it does seem like it should play a role in some way moving forward. But I just don't think Otto Hightower was ever in a million years planning to do a damn thing about that. And I was surprised that she bought it.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know that she actually bought it, which is part of the reason why she was like, hey, I just want you to know, your little blonde kid, I could have killed him at any time. Anytime. He's alive because of me. So when you're sitting in your high tower there, drinking your Arbor Gold or whatever bullshit the Lannisters are serving you, remember, your new King Aegon is because of me. Okay? I am the boss. These people are actually all your bosses. You only have power because we say so. And I tell them what to think. So, I'm going to need you to get rid of those fighting pits with the kids in them, okay? Otto, remember this. So, yeah, I think that was a pure mafia boss move on her part to say, hey, look, I could have let the queen, who should be the queen, but I'm going to give you your king. I can do that for you. Here's what you can do for me. I think his whole thing of I'll look into it was the reason why she kind of threw out that line of remember when he's the king that it was me who allowed that to happen.
I think you're right, Don. But I also think that Otto Hightower underestimates her and doesn't see the big threats that she actually does represent.
I agree, and I think he was like, yeah, I remember, sure, whatever. Like, I don't think he took her seriously at all.
Oh no, I don't think he took her seriously, but I just think that it was one of those things where I don't think that she, took him at his word when he was like, oh, I'll look into it, which is why he was, she kind of came with the backup of, okay, yeah, you'll look into it, and I'm going to look into installing Aegon as the king. All right, you do realize that you still don't have him yet, right? Until this conversation is over, and I feel like telling you where he is, you have no king, or at least not the one you wanted. So, you know, I think that yes, he probably underestimates her still, even though it's like, hey, yeah, no one was supposed to know that Viserys is dead. None of these people outside of our area that we're talking right now know this, but that can change like that. And if you're trying to play me right now, it's not going to be good. And he's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I get it. I gave you the bag of gold. Where's the kid? Okay, where's the kid? Let me go make him king. No. Look, I'll look into the whole fighting pits thing. Okay, all right. So I look, 10-year-olds fighting bad, very, very bad. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, yeah. All right. I hear you. You have the bag of gold. Can we have the king now, please? for the love of the seven.
Yeah, I just thought of something. I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, but I think there's a conversation between Laris and Otto Hightower later, where Otto Hightower was basically, "Oh, you did a good job," and Laris is like, or he's like, "You're working with the queen." He's like, "Well, it doesn't have to just be the queen." That wasn't his exact words, but it was implied that I can work for you too. He then goes to Alice and says, "Hey, we need to get rid of this Massaria." So. I don't know. I think it's possible that originated with Otto, that he wanted to get rid of Massaria after that.
Oh, that's an interesting theory. Yeah,
I actually just thought of that. But
it's possible. Yeah.
Well, you know what? That kind of makes sense because if you think about it, Mr. Laris the Clubfoot was the one that when Otto says to him, "Hey, you've been spending many hours with the Queen as of late," and Laris Strong was like, "Yeah, well, there's nothing that says that those hours can't benefit you."
yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what
yeah.
I'm talking about. And then, so that's why I think that it could have possibly, this idea to snuff out Massaria could have originated with Otto, because he doesn't want to be, he doesn't want to have to answer to some you know, whatever.
Yeah, be threatened.
Well, yeah, he doesn't want to have to answer to her. So I think he might have, initiated that whole thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
no,
so
but I don't just real quick. I don't think it was Otto actually going to Lara Strong and saying, "Get rid of a White Worm for me," so much as he still feels like he has to prove himself, right? He is the chief confessor or the king's confessor, whatever his title is, but he still feels as though he needs to prove himself. So I think this was more of a move on Lara Strong's part of, hey, well, I still, the fact that that there's somebody out there who has as much information as I do is a threat. I need the high towers to come to me for whatever information they want. So I'm gonna serve this up to them and say, hey, look, I know that there's still a spy network running around here. I can shut that all down if you say so, because at the end of the day, this is what's best for your family. I'm doing what's best for you right now.
all right, so we'll get into Lars a bit later, but first I wanted to get back to Aegon. Just the whole thing with him, the final confrontation of them finally catching up to them, and having to drag him out, and him not like screaming is like not wanting to be king. Now, an interesting moment in this is when Aemon is holding him, and he says, he goes to Amy. He's like, just let me go. I'll get on the ship. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. And I think Eamon absolutely wanted to take him up on that offer. It's only because Kristen Cole stepped in. It's like, come on, let's get Aegon back to your mother. He kind of like, all right, fine, we'll do that. But I think when he said that, I was like, you know what? that's a good idea because I should be king anyway. And it's also funny, like when he was holding Aegon, Aegon's like, I don't deserve to be king. And Aemon's like, yeah, you're right. But so yeah, so that was a bit of an interesting dynamic. And then I also will roll this into the scene where we see Aegon riding with his mother on the way, and she, he's like, continuing this, I don't want it, why are you forcing this on me? But when she, gives him the dagger and says, look, your father wanted you to be king. And at first he's like, didn't believe her, laughing it off, like, yeah, right. Like he had 20 years or 18 years, however long, to tell me this, and he never said a goddamn thing about it. But I think she kind of convinced him. And when she gave him the dagger and was like, oh, do you love me? And she looked at him and was like, you imbecile. And she kind of shaked her head. Oh, you imbecile. I don't love you. That's one interpretation I saw. But anyway, Alyssa, let's start with you. Your thoughts on Aegon.
Well, first getting back to the Aemon and Aegon thing, you took the words right out of my mouth. When I was saying earlier, there's something I really want to talk about that scene. I interpreted it the same way. I thought that if Kristen Cole was not there and it just Aemon and Aegon were alone and only Aemon knew where Aegon was, he'd be like, yeah, let's get you out of here. I mean, they would have to. I don't know if the two of them are smart enough to come up with a good plan, because it can't just be like, oh, well, he's dead now. Just make me king. I don't think anybody would buy that. Like, I think they would have to come up with a better plan, but I think he absolutely 100% would have done it. Because he thought he should be king anyways, except that Kristen Cole was standing right there, and Kristen Cole's like, come on, let's go. But yeah, I noticed the same thing. Now, when it comes to Aegon and Alicent, so everybody in this show did just want to be loved. Is that so wrong? Like Rhaenyra was the same way. Just wants her dad to pay attention to her. Daemon wants his brother to pay attention to him. And they just all want to be loved. And Aegon's got a point. And he didn't even hear the line when Viserys, I can't remember if it was the end when he was mumbling about the prophecy, or if it was another point last episode when he was kind of on the milk of the poppy and he was mumbling and he referred to Rhaenyra as his only child. So he, and you don't ever see him on screen like seeming to give a shit about any of his other kids. And I think that we are to take from that there was no love and admiration happening off screen. That is just how he was toward his kids. And Aegon, that's why Aegon doesn't believe that his father would ever name him king, because his father has never shown the least bit of interest in him, which is probably what has driven him into this life of debauchery and douchebaggery that he's devolved into. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the moment where he really was sold on it was more when he was on the stage and he had the crowd of people like cheering him, and he had his dictator moment. And he's like, "Ooh, lots of power." So I don't know if he was sold on it yet. At least the way that I read it. But I just have to throw in another little side note about this scene is that she hands him that dagger, as you mentioned, having no idea what's inscribed on it, because Viserys held it up to the flame. He showed it to Rhaenyra. That was the whole Song of Ice and Fire. So I think we're seeing now how this prophecy dies. I don't think it makes it anywhere near Daenerys. I think it dies here because Alicent doesn't know about it. She hands him the dagger that has the inscription of that prophecy on it, and neither of them have any idea. He just thinks it's a cool looking dagger or whatever that's been in the family for a while. But they have no idea. But yeah, I don't know. I guess there's different interpretations. I didn't necessarily think that he was sold on it just yet, but maybe he's starting to buy it here. I don't know.
I mean, listen, Aegon. Listen, I get it, all right? This wasn't supposed to be his job. He wasn't raised for it. He just wants to party. He wants to watch some kids fight, create a few bastards, put them up to fight too. Do the things that, rich entitled pricks like to do. All right. And here he is now, where his mom is telling him, "Nope, you look, you're gonna be the king. Your dad wanted you to be the king." He's like, "Ma, it's not true." And she's like, "No, no, no. Look, he gave you his blade." He's like, "Wait, dad took that thing everywhere with him. You're sure he said he wanted me to be the yes?" Hmm. Okay, give me. Mine. It's like from 1 second he went from being Jon Snow's I don't want it to being Daffy Duck, and I think that kind of goes to the whole thing of him not necessarily understanding the enormity of what it is to be a ruler. So he just sees it as, okay, well, shit, you're going to give me all of this power. I'm going to do with it as I please to a certain extent. And so for him, it's like, um, all right, well, shit, you're gonna give it to me. I'm gonna take it, especially now I didn't want it originally, and find out that no, this is what my dad actually wanted me to have. I wasn't even sure if he liked me, but I mean, I guess he more than likes me because this was like his most prized possession. I got the dagger. I didn't even know what the hell this thing did. And it's sad for him to a certain extent because he doesn't know the significance of that at all, right? And so I'm guessing this is going to be kind of the break in the chain, um, because it's almost like having a president with the nuclear codes or whatever presidential secrets, and then all of a sudden, uh, you know, before the person who's supposed to actually be president gets to take their oath of office, somebody else swoops in and somehow winds up becoming the president and not knowing all of the nuclear secrets that was given to the person who was actually supposed to get the job. And so it was like, yeah, I have the job in terms of, I have all of the rights and responsibilities. I'm still missing some of the pieces here because there's information I'm supposed to have that I totally do not have. And so I'm looking at this symbol as, oh, this is family heirloom. Cool. But I'm the king now. Even cooler. It's like, yeah, but you have no idea the responsibility because, hey, if the White Walkers showed up in 5 years after the death of Viserys, it would have been a problem if he had already, if Aegon had already killed Rhaenyra and had absolutely no idea what that dagger is supposed to do.
Indeed. I did want to address Allison in the chat. Oh, by the way, Allison, good to see you. Saying if the Hightowers always planned to put Aegon on the throne, why didn't they do a better job of raising him or preparing him to rule? Which is a good question. My sort of thought on that is that Otto doesn't really care about Aegon ruling. He just wants him to be a puppet. He can put his hand in and go, I'm talking about Aegon. And kind of like the way that Tywin Lannister ruled through Joffrey. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and if you buy Hightowers, you're including Alicent. I mean, Alicent,
yes.
She, did want Aegon to be prepared to rule, as we've seen in earlier episodes, but I think she just didn't know how, the dude was probably raised by nursemaids, handmaids, or whatever. She didn't know how to. I think she tried. She was. There was the episode where he was, masturbating out of the window. I think she was trying to set him straight. She doesn't know how. She has no control over the boy. I think she wanted to teach him the rule, but he was just not going along with it, and she doesn't know how to be a mother. She didn't know how to. As how I see it. But as far as Otto goes, yeah, I agree with you that would be the answer to that.
And I'll have to jump in the chat where Joseph says that I assume referring to all the secrets that they probably took them to Castle
Mar-a-Lago.
Mar-a-Lago, yeah.
Yeah. All of the secrets are in Castle Mar-a-Lago. Yes.
Yeah, and we're definitely not getting those secrets back. So I mean, unfortunately, when the when the White Walkers come from north of Siberia, we're screwed. So unless there happens to be a wolf girl from Texas that can somehow do something with the dagger.
Right. All right, so let's get into the Laris of it all, and the Otto Hightower of it all. I want to first talk about all the lords who were like brought before Otto Hightower and like, oh, so hey, we're making Aegon king, so we're giving you the choice now to swear fealty to him. And this one dude's like, you know what? I'm just gonna go back to my castle. I'm gonna think on this. I'm gonna give some serious thought, and I'll get back to you. But is like, you ain't going nowhere until you say yes. I'm basically not taking no for answer. And I love we get, I believe his name is Lord Caswell. I actually don't remember this person from the books. Maybe he's not mentioned in World of Ice and Fire. Maybe it's just in Fire and Blood. But apparently people who read the books knew his fate. I didn't know his fate. But I just knew him as a dude who like didn't even notice that Rhaenyra was bleeding all over the place. Like, oh, I support you. I was like, that's great, but I'm kind of fucking bleeding all over the place now. And I like the scene with him because he's like, at first he refuses to kneel like the other two, but then he doesn't say anything and he watches as they're like, they're both like, I'm not going to support him. Rhaenyra's the queen. They're like, okay, take him away. You know what? Fuck it. All hail the king. I totally support King Aegon. Yay. And kneels down. And he tries to get away with it and tries to go out and sneak away and warn Rhaenyra. And he would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those dastardly kids, Laris, who is smart enough because he was watching this, seeing this happen, and I was like, yeah, that guy's full of shit. He doesn't support Aegon, and very wise, and keeps an eye on him, and turns him in, and so he's like, oh, this, what do they call him? The master confessor is like, you assume too much. Why you just assume I'm going to warn Rhaenyra? I'm like, there's tons of things I could be doing. They're like, yeah, like what? I don't know. He doesn't answer. I think this shows like, I don't know. He's not very good at lying. He couldn't think of a convenient lie. It's like, my daughter's giving birth. That's it. That's the ticket. Or something else. But no, so he gets caught. He gets hanged. We see later he's hanging. So they actually kill those people who didn't support Aegon, which does really show what kind of people that Otto Hightower and Laris was, which I thought was really interesting. Alyssa, your thoughts on this?
Did they kill those other people? We see Caswell hanging. Yeah, we don't see them hanging.
True. I just assumed they killed them.
I thought they just took him to the. I thought they just took him to the dungeons. I actually wanted to see them hanging too. Like I wanted to see definitively what they did with them because I thought they might have just thrown them in the black cells, but. It's nothing good. Like they're not, they're not sitting in their room eating ice cream and taking a bath. Like whether they were murdered or putting in the black cells, nothing good. But I was kind of curious what happened with them. Yeah, and this is what gives circling back to what we talked to before. This is what impresses Laris on Otto that he was able to catch this. And this is where we kind of get that weird scene between the two of them where he's like, yeah, well, I just have to spend all the hours with the queen. So, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't do a rewatch of it yet. I don't know if you could see in the rewatch, if there's any scenes of Laris actually watching Lord Caswell, or we're just assuming that happened off screen, but,
Well, we saw him when they had the court meeting, and he like kneeled down. That Laris was sitting up there and looking at him. And
Okay, I see. I didn't catch that.
oh, okay, right.
So there was one. There was a scene
Yes,
like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Lord Laris Strong. He will make you bend the knee, or he will make you break your neck. It's only one of those two. Oh, or he's going to burn you, alive inside of your castle. Whether or not your family. And here we have a guy who, again, I'm not sure how you get worse than him. Not sure how you get worse than this guy. Somehow he managed it. He's been going around. He's what the I don't know, chief confessor, Lord's confessor, whatever the hell. So he's out there torturing people, and the fact that he has an in on the spy network, it's like, how do you know all this stuff? We still haven't figured out how he knows the things that he knows, because he just runs around telling people like, I know a thing. I think you might want to know that thing. I'm just going to speak very softly in hopes that maybe my calming, soothing voice will help you to hear my message. And it's like, all right, dude, you are creepy, okay? Like, you with this extra monotone, just, yes, I'll do whatever you need. Like, all right, dude, I'm gonna need you to back up like 15 paces. I don't care if you can't run, all right? But yeah, like him, doing his dirty dealings in the background, and snitching people out, and just generally causing all sorts of, not confusion, but he's definitely playing a lot of sides against each other. I'm not sure to what end, because for whatever reason he's all Hightower. He's a super Hightower loyalist. I have absolutely no idea why, because other than him being Lord of Harrenhal, just because his father and brother died under mysterious circumstances, yeah, we don't know anything that he's actually gained. I mean, he keeps on talking to, he's talked about how Alyssa Hightower before was supposed to give him some sort of reward. I have no idea what the hell a reward is. And now he's kind of playing the father against the daughter with some of this stuff. And I don't know why Otto Hightower allows him to remain in service, other than the fact that he's good at torturing people. So yeah,
that's probably enough. It's probably good enough for him.
He could use a good torturer or two.
I know we're gonna get to the Allison and Laris later, but like, yeah, I don't understand why Otto has him around, other than the fact that Otto is a damn sadist and just likes to see people get tortured. And it's like, oh, I have a little mini sadist over here who likes to torture people. Cool. I like watching torture. You like torturing? It's a marriage made in the seven heavens.
Well, I think that's what that scene was, is kind of Otto kind of questioning Laris.
Mhm.
Be like, well, what, when he says like, oh, you're spending a lot of hours with my daughter. It's kind of like, why do I need you? Like, what's going on? And that's why he was like, well, those hours could work in your benefit as well. So making it clear that he could, not just help Allison, but also him as well. But yes, let's get into this scene. So Laris has been like a really creepy guy, as you talked about, down the skin in the background, talking, very softly and like, setting up assassins. But I feel like this scene was like the writers going, you know what? I don't think he's creepy enough. What possible way can we turn up that creepiness by like 100%? Like, let's just rank up that creepiness. And then we get this scene, the whole foot fetish scene, which is what everyone was talking about. At first, I didn't really get what's going on. I was like, why did her feet hurt or something? Why is she taking off her shoes and putting her feet on? And I was like, oh, what? Don, you were saying I was, how Allison was going to give him a reward. Maybe this is the reward he was talking about. I don't know, but oh my God.
Right. So essentially, Allison has become a BDSM foot fetish sex slave.
Well, all she has to do is take her shoes off and put her feet up while he goes.
I get it, but it's still like she knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's the impression I got. She totally knows what he's
doing. She was looking away intentionally. Yeah, she definitely knows. She definitely knows. Whatever it takes to get the information she wants, I guess.
I mean, but here's the thing, though, because it's like, I'm pretty sure she probably offered up one of her handmaidens, and he probably was like, you don't understand, my queen. The only way I can properly relieve myself is with you, because you have the power. And only with the power can I get release. They have no power. So you have to do this in order to get what you want from me.
All right, now you're starting to creep me out, though.
Yeah, you did it a little too well, though. I mean, it's a little creepy.
Oh, I can assure you, there is no other time you will ever hear me talk like that. No. That it creeped me out, dude, because I'm just like, how do you decide that that's the voice you're going to use on a regular basis? Like, no sort of inflection,
I think it is very similar to the Littlefinger voice. I talked about this before. Like when I didn't even know who this character was, and I heard his voice off screen, I'm like, Littlefinger. But
no, I don't think so, though. I don't think they sound alike at all. Like I think they both have kind of a raspy voice, but Littlefinger talks faster. He's more like I mean, I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Sometimes he would do the whispers.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, but at least he had some sort of emotion. Like he sound like, you know what? It's like if Robo Brand decided to become Littlefinger, this is who he would be. Basically, if season 7 and 8 Brand decided he was going to be Master Whisperers, he would be Lara Strong.
Now, I did want to mention something that Brandon in the chat was saying. As a physically disabled person, I find Lara Strong a bad trope. And I was actually thinking about that already. I was kind of thinking about how they're focused on him being handicapped. And I think this one scene where it's kind of like, because his foot is disabled, he gets off on seeing other people's feet, which, I don't know. I kind of agree, that kind of doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it because people have foot fetishes and don't want to kink shame, but at the same time it's a little, maybe don't give the guy who doesn't have a foot the foot fetish on the show. I don't know. That might be a little much. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why it became so creepy as well, because it's like here you have the guy who's running around with the moniker of the Clubfoot, right? And he in earlier episodes, I was about to say seasons, he feels like he's been around forever as well. In earlier episodes, he's going out of his way to make himself seem very meek and unassuming, and I just have a little thing I need to tell you, some information I think you should know. And now that he's gotten wormed his way into power, he's wielding that in this very manipulative kind of way, because for Allison, every time that he would divulge just a little information, she was like, "Oh, but wait," and he's like, "No, no, 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 nope. I need more. I need no, 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 no. Don't not just the socks. Pull them down off the ankles. Thank you. And it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, dude, like why? And then the fact that he's disabled too, it really, it really does kind of make it messed up. Because now it's like you like they have him using his disability as a way to disempower other people.
Mm-hmm.
And his fetish, his disability and his fetish combined is being used to disempower someone else who's in the upper echelons. And that to me was kind of like, all right, this goes beyond just being evil and diabolical. And yeah, I feel, kind of sorry for people who might think that, oh, this is because you know how sometimes people just have these weird notions in their head about, oh, well, if you have this uh difference about you, then there's all these negative stigmas that they try to attach. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that yeah, that's one thing I wish that the writers wouldn't have done, because I was sitting up there like, oh, this is just a little bit too far here. So yeah.
Well, yeah. I did want to mention Brandon in the chat clarifies that it was specifically just talking about a disabled guy being evil, which is, to be fair, something they took from the book itself, but they didn't have to. I don't know, but I do agree that is a trope seen in fiction too often. All right, cool. So,
Oh wait, hold on. I went
go
in. Yeah, actually, you went in, just trying to find a smooth transition because it has nothing to do with the disabled thing, but but it still has to do with this scene.
Yeah.
I assume we're going to get into the Rainey's thing, but this chronologically came after the conversation that Alicent has with Rainey's. And what I was just thinking that Rainey's was just proven right that Alicent is just. I mean, this is what she has to do. She is so. And she's just so in control of men. Like she is so dispowered by men. Men are controlling her, and it's to the point where, in order to get what she wants, she has to let a dude masturbate over her feet in front of her. I mean, how like low can you go? Like, so I just kept thinking like Alicent, like, yeah, Rainey's was right.
Well, let's actually get into
Yeah.
that. Let's talk about the whole Rainey's of it all, and her. First, we see her, in her room, not being able to get out and wondering what the fuck is going on. Eventually, she looks out the window and sees like all the lords being gathered up, so she can kind of figure something's going on. And then finally, we get that conversation between her and Alyson, which I agree was an extremely powerful scene. And I love like the contrast between Rainey's and Alyson, because I think actually Alyson made some good points to Rainey. She's like, well, why would you support Rhaenyra when did flat out say it, but it was like, she said cuckold your son, but I thought there was a modern term. I don't know, maybe it's not. But they didn't outright say that killed your son, but I almost expected her to. But I think that was kind of implied, and that her saying, "Oh, your daughter is dead," and why would you continue to support? And flat out says like, putting bastards in charge of the drift bar. She's like, look, you join me, I'll give you the drift bar. You can have it, and your granddaughters can inherit it. Like, you skip over the bastards. And that was a really good tactic. But I almost expected it to work, but it didn't work because Rhaenys sees through Alyson. She's wiser, and I think she proves that in that scene. And I love how she just goes up and whispers to her. It's like saying, "What? Oh, God!" Again, I wish I wrote down a quote that you're not creating power; you're just creating a window in your cell, or something like that. And that was and it's like, and it's interesting because she's saying you're just continuing this patriarchy, and wouldn't you like to be queen? What if you were the one in control of the seven kingdoms? And this is an interesting turn for a character because it seems in the earlier episodes this season she was resolved that this is the way the world is and there's nothing you can do about it, but it seems like now she's actually thinking maybe there is, and maybe if we made Rhaenyra queen, this would make a difference. At least that was my interpretation of it. I don't know, Alyssa, if you had a different interpretation.
Yeah, no, I mean that does make a lot of sense to me. But we saw last week already that Rainey sees right through bullshit. She saw right through Rhaenyra's bullshit, and she called her out directly. She's like, "Okay, I see exactly what you're trying to do here." Now, she doesn't call Alicent out directly in that same way, but she definitely sees through everything that she's trying to do. The whole thing about, oh no, but why would you continue to support Rhaenyra? Haven't you seen what that's gotten, House Valerian? Rainey's was just like, yeah, bullshit. I see what you're doing here. But also, she was trying to play the whole, oh, we're girl power, we're strong women together. And this is where Rainey's does call her out. And she says, and has the line about, you think you're free, but you're just really carving a window in your prison cell. Or what? Yeah, I wish I had written it down too, but it's something along those lines, talking about how she has this illusion that she's free from the patriarchy, but really she is just giving more power to the patriarchy. So I absolutely loved how she dressed her down and called her out, because she could see what she was trying to do. Oh, we're girls, girl power. Shouldn't we be, strong women together and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, bitch, you just don't even have any clue what you're talking about. And the Lara scene later on does kind of reinforce that. Yeah, I think Rainey's was right there. I think that you are just, you think that you're free. You think that, but really you're still a slave to the patriarchy. What you're trying to do is give power to a boy who does not deserve it, who is not worthy of it, who wouldn't be a good king. And that's what you call fighting the patriarchy. I don't know. I've heard a lot of people talk about this comparison to Alicent being like a Trump wife or a Trump what's the term, like a female Trump supporter. But and yeah, I don't know if I necessarily saw it before this episode, but I'm like, yeah, I see where that's coming from. This idea of thinking you're fighting the patriarchy, but really you're just giving it more power.
I mean, I think I kind of caught on earlier on that they were playing, especially when in the previous episode, when they showed how religious she was and had those religious symbols everywhere, that they were playing her, not necessarily specifically Trump supporter, but definitely more conservative, and Rhaenyra more sort of liberal. She's going around sleeping with people and whatnot. And that's, I think, part of the reason why I gravitated more towards Rhaenyra over Alicent, personally. But anyway, Don, your thoughts on this scene?
This was a very interesting scene because you have, the old guard versus the new, but there's still an overlap, even though that they are not, from the same generation per se. They still are part of the same systems. So where Alicent is like, hey, look, this is not exactly how we wanted it to be. And truthfully speaking, we know this isn't how it should be, but this is what it is. So if we actually work together, yeah, we may not be the actual people wearing the crown, but at least we can push things in the right direction, just gentle tug, right? And Rainey is kind of like, you know what? Very astute political move. Didn't think you had it in you. Glad you do. But here's the thing. You talk all of this, yeah, we're pushing things in the right direction, but at the same point, still answering to those men. You answered to your dad, you answered to your husband, and now you're answering to your son. And little does Rhaenys know she's also answering to the Lord's confessor. Um, so at the end of the day, yeah, well, Allison just talking all of the, yay, I'm woman, hear me roar. Come on, you should have been queen. Me, you, and Rhaenys, we can actually set things straight together. You know, girls getting it done. And Rhaenys like, you know what? That actually didn't even work in the boys. So let's put that to the side. All right. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because you know that Princess Rhaenys has seen season 2 of The Boys.
so it's one of those things where you have Rhaenys here being a realist. It's like at the end of the day, yeah, we can talk all of the talk, about us, really being the ones in power and who really should be running things. But at the end of the day, if Corlys lives, he calls the shots on Driftmark, not me. Aegon is going to wind up being the king. He calls the shots, not you. Even if you want to whisper in his ear, at the end of the day, he still calls the shots. So hey, look, for all that you're doing right now, you're talking about I should have been queen. I wasn't the queen, but you're right here, right now. You've seen what that throne looks like. You've never thought about yourself sitting there instead of the old man who had pieces falling off of him, or your kids who don't want and more so don't deserve to be sitting there. Your dad's a piece of shit. Look at all this happening right now. You think you couldn't do a better job? If you really, as they say in Flea Bottom, if you're really about that life, you'd have Kristen Cole chop them all down and you'd sit there. But you already know what it is. So I'm going to stay here. I'm going to figure out how to get my dragon out of here. And you go scurry back to make your son the king so he can boss you around.
So she wouldn't necessarily have to have Kristen Cole chop everyone down. What she could do is gather everyone in the sept and then get this wildfire underneath and blow it up and kill him, and then just miraculously become queen for no reason. Anyway. Anyway, so I wanted to get to the Rhaenys Great Escape with Sir Eric, who's had enough, fed up when he fucked off away from his brother. This is where we went. He's like, look, I can't be a part of this. This is bullshit. We need to go to Rhaenyra, and I'm gonna help you escape. And she's like, well, I want to get to the dragon because I didn't leave my fucking dragon behind. I need that dragon. He's like, well, that's gonna be the first place they look for you, so let's go this way. But in and out they didn't. The fucking crowds got corralled towards where Rhaenys wanted to go. She's like, cool. So I thought this whole scene was actually really intense because even though I read the books and I know what happens to this character, I know this part wasn't in the books, so I knew, that nothing was going to happen to Rhaenys, but I was scared. Like, I was actually intense. It was intense, even though logically I knew she wouldn't die. I was like afraid for her. I was like, what are they going to do? Are they going to catch her? It's like her being caught in this huge crowd, being corralled in one direction, like, and getting separated from Sir Eric. I thought this was really intense, getting to that Hitchcockian feel. This was what I thought this scene had for me, because I was so rooting for Rhaenys. Alyssa, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree. I think this was probably the most like Hitchcockian thriller-esque scene that they were going for here. That because I was just so like Team Rhaenys. I was so rooting for Rhaenys too because of how she just dressed down Alicent earlier. 2 weeks in a row, I think she's had some really great scenes. And this is a character that I've liked from the beginning, but she was really underused until last week, and 2 weeks in a row I've really really loved what they've done with this character. So while she is trying to get away, but she's being pushed by the crowds, I was worried for her. I actually didn't put two and two together until they got there, that she was actually just being pushed right to where she wanted to go to begin with, so it actually worked out for her. But so yeah, I felt the tension too. I agree with you.
Um, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, these two, yeah, these two were just. mm, these two were much of a match for each other in terms of just their back and forth, and so it was just interesting to see the whole. Again, this a lot of this whole episode is about uh, people with diametrically opposed views, right? And seeing how some people come to compromise with each other while others it's like, you know what, nope, I'm done. And now you have everything coming to a head where sides are actually starting to coalesce a bit. And so, Rainey's doing her thing with Sir Eric or Eric or whichever one it is. It's interesting because again, we talked earlier about how these two brothers, twins, same house, they're both Kingsguard, but somehow see this situation totally, totally different. And we see what the consequences are of one person saying, hey, look, I understand that this is the system, but I don't like the way that this system works because it's going to wind up getting us all killed. So I'm going to do what I can to set things right. And this was part of it. It's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to help. I'm going to help the queen that never was install the queen that should be right now. And it was interesting to see how these pieces get moved and how one person saying, hey, you know what, um I'm going to do this at the risk of everything that I'm supposed to stand for, and also the risk of my own life and reputation, because at the end of the day, depending on who wins this war, you know this goes down in the history books as a black eye or a black mark on someone's record. So if the Greens win, the way that it's written down in the history books is this was all treachery. If the blacks win, hey, they did what they had to do to save the realm from usurpers and tyrants. And this is one piece of it. And had it not been for some of the things that happened earlier in the episode, this might not make much sense at all.
Well, yeah, and to that point, in the chat, Brandon was saying the whole rainy scene confused me, and Allison said it was a little hard to tell what was going on. Did anyone else find it confused? Because I may be a little bit confused, but for the most part, I was able to pretty clearly follow what was going on. I mean, I didn't know where they were going. I don't think you're supposed to know where they're being corralled to until they actually arrive there, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I mean, I didn't have any problem with it. I mean, she was clearly trying to go one way. The crowd was pushing her this other way. And I assumed this is like the big event. They're all going to the coronation or whatever. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't have any problem following it. I guess I don't know.
it took me a second to realize exactly what it was that was happening because you know when you see Rainey's and Sir Eric leaving at first, and then they're talking, and you see kind of like the people behind them, thinking, okay, oh wow, so he's got like her and all of her headbands out of there. They're going to try to get a ship and see if they can get to Driftmark or maybe Dragonstone or whatever, but they're trying to get out of here. And then once you see that they separate from the people who were right behind them, it's like, okay, wait, what's happening? And then you start to hear them, hear the gold cloaks kind of rounding everyone up. And I actually had forgotten at first that that Allison said, "Oh no, everyone in King's Landing, excuse me, that everyone in King's Landing is to witness Aegon's coronation." So I wasn't even thinking about that at first. I'm like, wait, what was going on here? Like, did they discover that Rhaenys is gone and they're kind of rounding everyone up? And then I was like, what? No, because at this point, someone would have been like, hey, take off that hood. We want to see who's under there. So I'm like, what's going on? And then once the bell started tolling, I'm like, oh wait, no, this is different. This is what they're doing. Coronation. Okay, cool. And it's at the Dragon Pit. Cool. And then once I saw Rainey sneak off, I'm like, oh, okay. I wonder what's going to happen here. How did she escape?
Well, I saw a couple of reviews that pointed out that I missed this, but as they're going through the crowd, there's literal sheep in the crowd, which is a little on the nose because they're herding the sheep to go and worship the king that they are trying to force down their throats. But there actually is a scene where there's actual sheep, and it's a little bit on the nose there, but I guess works.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I didn't know where they were going ultimately, but I never thought that they were like trying to find Rhaenys. I thought it was just they're corralling the crowds in one direction.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know immediately why they were corralling the crowds, but it seemed like they were corralling the crowds for something. So it wasn't, and I put together that it was for the coronation before I figured out that they were going exactly where Rhaenys wanted to go, which was the Dragon Pit.
Yeah. I didn't really get that until I saw it. Like she was like smiling. She was like, "Oh, they must be going to the Dragon Pit." So let's get into that scene. Which, all right, I don't know if I call this scene controversial, but I am definitely really conflicted on this because on the one hand, a dragon showing up and fucking things up. Always amazing, always a delight to see, and especially like because the whole ceremony was all this pomp, and you saw that Aegon was actually getting into it and going like and lifting his sword, and the crowds were kind of unsure too. They're kind of like, I guess we'll clap, but then he starts getting into it, and the crowd start getting into it. It's like, fuck, I'm a rock star. But then Dragon fucking shows up like, fuck you all, and kills a whole bunch of people, just burst out, and everyone's freaking out. Now, before I get to the rest of that, really quick question. What Otto Hightower was shouting, "Open the doors," and the gold cloaks were very clearly not opening the doors. They're very clearly closing them and not letting anyone leave. Why? I'm sure. Are those like gold cloaks loyal to Daemon? They're like, no, fuck this. We're gonna keep everyone trapped in there. That was my thought. I don't know if anyone had a different interpretation on that.
Yeah, so my thinking in terms of that was, okay, there's a dragon and there's a Targaryen on that dragon. Let's not let them out to possibly burn down the damn city. And Otto Hightower was like, don't keep hurting the damn dragon in here to kill all of us. So it was like, all right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know, but did they really think they could stop a dragon with a door? I mean, very clearly that wasn't enough.
Well, I think the way that the Dragon Pit doors are constructed, and I could be wrong, I'm gonna go back and watch it again, but I do believe that
they're constructed to keep them in. Yeah. But
yeah, because they're really there.
I suppose, and maybe they were hoping that would be the case, but clearly it didn't stop them because the dragon still got out.
Well, no, because they hadn't closed the doors all the way.
Yeah,
they hadn't. They had stopped closing the doors at one point.
They weren't able to because there were too many people there, which is what I don't know. I still felt weird that they were trying to close the door. But anyway, I don't know if you had thoughts on this, Alyssa.
Actually, honestly, I didn't even think of it when I was watching it. So
So anyway, but that's not what I'm conflicted on. What I'm conflicted on is the dragon has the whole Greens family, the whole Hightower family right there in front of them. It's just one word, Dracarys, could have ended the entire war before it started, and then that would completely go against the books, obviously. Do. But I was mad at the show for setting up this situation because there's a lot of other films and shows where like the hero has the chance to kill the villain, but they don't. It ends up all these bad things happen because of that. Had they just done that one thing, and that's a trope I never really liked, particularly the movie Gangs in New York, where like this guy is on the quest to kill this guy, and he could have killed him like 5 times, and he doesn't, and so he ends up killing all of his friends because he didn't kill him. I hate that movie, but anyway, I don't think this was as bad as that, but there's been a lot of talk on why she didn't do it. In the after show, they say that that Rhaenys was like saw Allison as a mother, like she's a mother, and saw her for who she was, and it's like, look, it's not up to me to decide their fate. I'm just gonna go tell Rhaenyra to do it. Which okay, I can buy that. I can buy. I want to be clear. I can buy Rhaenys' motivation. I just don't like it as a storytelling method where they could have ended everything in front of everyone. But again, dragon fucking shit up. Cool. So I'm kind of conflicted. Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
yeah, I kind of did think about that. What's going to happen next episode, or even really more so like next season? Spoiler alert: people are going to die. Bad things are going to happen. It's Game of Thrones. So after more bad things happen, is Rhaenys going to be like, oh yeah, I saw Aegon wearing the original Aegon's crown. Like, how did you know that? Oh, it was that time where I was in the dragon pit and then the dragon was right in front of me. Wait, what? Hold on. Wait, what? What? You mean you could have ended all of this before it started? All these people died and you could have been. Yeah, and I did kind of wonder, why did they create this moment? Did they create this possibility where it doesn't exist in the books? But I don't know. Ultimately, I'm okay with it. I don't know. It was a little weird because we knew there was 0% chance. Even if I hadn't read the book, I know that there's going to be a season 2, and then I know that if she burns them all, that's the end of the show. And Rhaenyra gets crowned in the next episode, and everybody lives happily ever after. Who's still alive?
Yes, we talked about the season 2 is going to be Rhaenyra hanging out at King's Landing, being the queen. Everyone's going to love her. They're going to sit by fires, sing songs, and make jokes, and that's.
Yeah, so even without having read the book, I would know there's 0% chance that that's going to happen. So it was weird to set it up that way, but ultimately, I guess I'm not bothered that much by it. I actually was thankful because, well, everyone else seems to be focusing on, oh, was she going to burn them or was she not? I'm probably the only person, but there was like maybe 5% of my brain or 10% of my brain that was like, is she about to get off the dragon and kneel? I thought she was about to get off the dragon and kneel to Aegon. That's what I was. I thought there was more of a chance of that happening than her burning them, because she looked like she was in thought. She was trying to decide. And then if she had done that, I would have been enraged because in the book she is very much Team Black, Team Rhaenyra. So it would have been a massive change. But I knew she was never going to burn them.
Yeah, I got to be honest. That thought did not occur to me.
I think I'm the only one because everyone else was like, oh, was she going to burn them? Of course she wasn't going to burn them. I mean, that would be the end of the show. There was 0% chance she was going to burn them. I was thinking, yeah. I kept seeing her like she was on her saddle. I was like, she looks like she's about to slide off and maybe take a knee to God, which I would have hated. And granted, there's only like maybe 5% of me that was fearing that. Like 95% of me is like, no, she's just going to fly off and go.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, the logic part of my brain knew obviously she couldn't kill them all because then there would be no show. But I was so I knew that would be the conclusion. My thoughts more of why are they making this scenario? Why? Because it makes less sense where she had this opportunity to end the war before it started. It makes the whole story a bit messy. That was more of my thoughts on it.
Oh, Allison had that thought for a second too. So I'm not the only one in the world.
Oops. Wrong button. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't think that she was going to kneel, but I mean, I didn't think she was going to burn them either. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, she's here. This is obviously, my moment to be badass. It's like, look, no one puts Rainey in the corner, okay? No one puts Rainey's in the corner. And I think that's what it was more than anything. It was just kind of like, yeah, look, I might be, this older, elder stateswoman or whatever, but I'm still a Targaryen who rides a damn dragon. Oh, and by the way, badass armor as well. Okay, uh, I could kill you. I think you need to slow your roll, back the fuck down before I come back with the rest of the dragons and wreck some shit. I think that's what it was. It's like, look, I'm going to be nice right now. I'm just going to let you know you could have all died. Right now, you need to calm down. All right, I'm out of here.
Yeah, no, I can buy that. Yeah, definitely. And I do see that what I like about it is definitely a badass Rainey's moment. And I think it was well on. I was almost getting up in the chair, and I like the look on Allison's face when Rainey's flies off, because at first it's like, oh, we're alive! Oh, thank God! Oh shit, she's going to warn Rhaenyra. God damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's next week is going to be very interesting when it comes to that whole thing because, now Rhaenyra, who she's like, oh hey, me and Alyssa, we're gonna be cool again. We're gonna be best buds, just like when we were kids. Oh man, this is just gonna be so cool. Okay, yeah, okay, Jace, Luke, look, your uncles, they were dicks. All right, we know this already, but it's cool. I'm gonna go back, gonna spend a little time with your grandpa real quick. Me and Allison, we're gonna go hang out in the Weirwood Grove again. We're gonna have the minstrel make a new song for us or something. New Westerosi banger to be for the next 5 years. Um, yeah, and everything's gonna be cool. And then Rainy show is gonna show up and it's gonna be like, yeah, so just so you know, your dad is dead and your brother is now the king. It's like I'm just like, what? Yeah, so that's gonna be interesting through the aftermath of all this. And with the High Tower sitting there like, she could have killed us, right? She could have killed us and she didn't. Maybe we shouldn't start a war. No, start the war. Call the banners. Call all of the banners. Like, but she could have killed us. Yes, but she didn't. And since she didn't, call the banners on the fool.
All right, so I just had a thought, and maybe you'll disagree with me, but I was kind of thinking, like, so when the dragon was in front of them and could have light them on fire, wouldn't it be a good idea to run away? And I mean, maybe they couldn't get away from the dragon, but does it hurt to try? I don't know. Instead of just standing there, dumb.
I think it was pretty crowded. I mean, I don't know. It was like there was chaos in the crowd. Where would they have run to, though?
Well, no, weren't there? I feel like they were on a stage and they could have run to like off stage to the side, and all the people were that way in front of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's probably people everywhere in Madness. I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I think for that one, I think they were just in so much fear, and it was kind of like, hey, wait, maybe if we don't move, the
I don't know, like, because at first Allison like calls like Chris and Cole's like, get Helena, get her out of here, but instead like they were all, not just Allison and Aegon, like all of them were just standing there like, Like, why don't you run? I don't know. That's just what I was thinking.
No, like I said, I think it was more like, okay, all right, I've seen Jurassic Park. Dragons are like T-Rexes. If you stand directly in front of them and don't move, they can't see you. What about the rider? She's old, okay? She probably needs glasses. If we just stand here and say nothing, shit, she saw us. Protect the king.
Don, it's great having you on because I learned new things. I learned that the people in Westeros at this time had access to modern day movies and television. It's great.
I mean,
everyone in Westeros has seen Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
This society has been around for like 10,000 years. I mean, you're telling me in all this time, no one has figured out some form of electric, like anything. Seriously, after 8,000 years, I'm just saying,
All right. So, any final thoughts before we conclude our discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to add another thing that I heard like an interesting interpretation. I can't remember some podcast or video I watched or something of that scene and why it is so different from the books. Because in the books, Aegon gets on Sunfire and does a couple laps around, and everybody's like, "Oh, cool, our king's on a dragon, woo!" And like Rhaenys, as I said before, is nowhere near this, and that whole thing doesn't happen. So someone said that Grand Maester, what the hell's the dude's name who's writing the song of the Blood and Fire book?
Eustace and Eustace. Oh,
yeah.
No. All right, so Eustace is one of the POVs.
Yeah, Eustace is one of the sources, but the guy who's writing so Munchkin, Eustace, and Mushroom are the sources, but the guy who's writing
Gildane.
What's his name?
Archmaester Gildane.
Archmaester Gildane, yeah. That he is reporting kind of a propagandized version of history, and this is the real version. This is what really happened. So, but the propaganda was like. This kind of somehow like the Hightower, like Aegon propaganda slipped into history, where this is the story that was probably passed along to the people that Aegon just got on the dragon and flew around and everybody cheered and it was wonderful. But Rhaenys came up and killed a bunch of people with their dragon, which I thought was really interesting.
I like that interpretation. Yeah. I mean, really a lot, maybe not all, but a lot of the changes from the books, you could like pass it off as like, oh yeah, these historians just got it wrong.
Yeah, you can do that.
All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and end this discussion here. I want to thank everyone in the chat joining us for this discussion. Brandon, Allison, always great to see you. Duke Chronic, and coming a little late, but great to see you regardless. And I believe there's a few people earlier, like Joseph and Alex. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you for everyone watching this in the archives and supporting the channel. Very much appreciate it. And big thank you to my guests. We'll start with you, Don. Shout out what you're up to, where people can find you, and all that sort of thing.
Listen, Mark, thank you as always for having me. Alyssa, also great to see you as well. And to everyone in the chat and watching the archives, Valemogoles, which why are there no faceless men in this yet? Or will there be at one point? I don't even remember. Anyway,
there won't be. Spoiler if there won't be.
Thank you for that. Crushing my dreams. So look, you can find me on Twitter at idonwilli, IDONWILLI. You can find me on a couple of various channels here and there when people ask me to guest. And at the end of the season, me and the rest of the Hype Swatch will be doing a season 1 wrap up. We did a mid-season show. We're going to do a full season wrap up. I'm going to try to have a couple of guests on there and make it a super all-day blowout for no good reason, so we can just talk good Game of Thrones finally again. as long as the end sticks to landing, okay? I'm hoping the finale sticks to landing. And Miguel Sapochnik, I don't know why you're leaving, but I mean, it is what it is. So anyway, other than that, yes, and I will actually be starting to do individual videos on my channel again. I'll do more character profiles and all that good stuff that I used to do from back in the past. All right, so yeah, and you can find me, there's my moniker there, Don of Ice and Fire. All right, yeah, Mark, again, thank you for having me, and sorry for the rambling. But anyway, take it away.
Always great to have you, Don. And of course, Alyssa, thanks for joining us always. And where can people find you?
You can find me over on Alyssa Jean's reviews, and also you can find me right back here next week to talk about the finale, which I'm really looking forward to. I think they will stick the landing, and I'm looking forward to talking about it next week. Some things that I have going on my channel, weekly Star Trek Lower Decks reviews. We've got 2 episodes left of that upcoming. I also just uploaded my She-Hulk Attorney at Law Season 1 review, just kind of give my overall thoughts of that first season. Also, in the same day, uploaded my Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power Season 1 review, kind of giving my thoughts on that season. So please go check those videos out. And as far as House of Dragon stuff, after we do our discussion next week, within the couple days after that, I will release my review for the overall season. And also, I'll do my predictions review. I did 7 predictions. So far, I have 2.5 of them right. Most of them were geared toward the finale, so that's why I won't know until I get most of my predictions are right or wrong until next week. So I will talk about those too, and they won't have the original predictions were in a spoiler section. You had to have read the books, but they will probably just be in an everybody spoiler-free section, because at that point, like, it won't be book spoiler anymore because it will have already have happened or not happened. So I'll talk about how I did on my predictions, and then this is an announcement. I do plan on doing a second video sometime later in the week where I just want to sit here and it's book readers only, because I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to talk full spoilers, about how the whole thing ends and who dies and when they die and how I think the show is, because you have to hold a lot of this back when you do these spoiler-free discussions. So I'm so I'm going to do a video where I'm can you believe in the second season? I'm just going to spread it all out because I just have to talk full book spoilers. So the first video will be, for everybody, not book spoilers. The second video will be full on what I'm most looking forward to, what I think they're going to do, not official predictions, but just how I think the story might play out. And we actually got, I know with Don last time you were on, we were discussing how many seasons there's going to be. George R. R. Martin says that there's going to be 4 seasons of 10 episodes each. So I will definitely be I've already been thinking about that. What's going to be in the 3rd season? What's going to be in the 4th season? And I'm going to be talking about those sorts of things, full on book spoilers in my second video. The first one will be book spoiler free. Anyways, check out all of that stuff over on Alyssa Jean's reviews.
Cool. And if you're finding me for the first time, my channel is Enchantment of Eternity. My name is Mark, and I do these, only got one more House of the Dragon discussions. Next week, we'll go back to the original 3, Alyssa and Darren, to finish out the season for House of the Dragon. And then after that, I will do my own review of season 1 of House of the Dragon. I haven't thought about doing predictions. I don't know, maybe eventually. But anyway, yes, I'll be doing a review for House of Dragon on my channel. I also covering the last 2 episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks, and after that I'll cover Prodigy weekly. I think there's a bit of a crossover on that one. And the Rings of Powers is done. I have my review for the whole season coming out next week as well. And I believe this week I will be releasing a channel update announcement on the kind of, I think it's a big deal, the new direction I'm going to take my channel in, just the kind of videos I'm going to make going forward. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you all next time. And I'll say what Rainey's didn't have the gall to say, Dracarys!